red dress. A quiet night stretches out, thick with an almost tangible silence. The air feels heavy, each breath slow and deliberate. Streetlights flicker intermittently, casting long, eerie shadows across the pavement. A faint buzz from the dying lamp sends an unsettling hum into the void, a sound that feels as unnatural as the emptiness surrounding it. A quiet night stretches out, thick with an almost tangible silence. The air feels heavy, each breath slow and deliberate. The screen fades to black, and a stylized title card emerges. Red dress. The text flickers like it's alive, distorted edges veiled in darkness before disappearing as abruptly as it came. The text flickers like it's alive, distorted edges veiled in darkness before disappearing as abruptly as it came. The text flickers like it's alive, distorted edges veiled in darkness before disappearing as abruptly as it came. The camera pans to the figure of a young man walking along a deserted urban street. Dressed in a jacket that flutters lightly in the cold breeze, he seems detached from his surroundings. But something feels off. He pauses mid-step, his head tilting slightly, as if listening for a sound that wasn't there. Is it his imagination? Or was there a whisper? As the young man continues walking, his pace quickens by instinct. The faint, rhythmic tapping of his footsteps is the only sound, echoing unnaturally in the stillness of the night. The world feels unusually void, as though drained of life. And then he sees her. The silhouette of a figure, a woman in a striking red dress, stands just beyond the reach of the flickering light. Her body is outlined with unsettling precision against the darkness, her face obscured by shadows. She stands motionless, silent, an almost decorative yet threatening addition to the empty street. The young man squints, hesitating. A sense of dread washes over him, thick and oppressive. His pulse quickens, though he tries to convince himself there's nothing to fear. After all, she's just standing there. But the longer he stares, the harder it is to shake the unnatural air about her presence. And then she moves. The woman in the red dress steps into the faint glow of the streetlight. Her movements are quiet, deliberate, and unnervingly slow. Her dress, vibrant and flowing despite the still breeze, glimmers faintly under the dim light. But it's not her elegance that unnerves him. It's her unnerving stillness amidst motion. Her head tilts slightly to the side, her shadowed face impossible to make out, yet he can feel her eyes piercing through him. The soft, haunting tones of a faint melody rise in the background. It's almost beautiful, but every note feels slightly distorted, like a forgotten tune dragged from the depths of a half-remembered nightmare. The young man takes a cautious step back. The woman takes another step forward. His chest tightens. His mind races with questions he cannot answer. Who is she? What is she? Unable to bear the escalating tension, he tears his gaze away, turning sharply toward the street ahead and accelerating his pace toward safety. But his instinct whispers that running will not free him. The discomfort in his chest grows heavier with every step. Behind him, a faint sound echoes, the delicate click of heels on the pavement, just one step, then two. Behind him, a faint sound echoes, the delicate click of heels on the pavement, just one step, then two. Behind him, a faint sound echoes, the delicate click of heels on the pavement, just one step, then two. He doesn't want to look back. He keeps walking, but the sound is closer now. When he finally yields to fear and glances over his shoulder, the woman is there. Closer this time, still walking calmly, her red dress gleaming like a warning against the muted surroundings. Her movements grow disjointed. There's an unnatural delay to each step, as if she exists in fragments, tearing reality around her with every motion. Her movements grow disjointed. There's an unnatural delay to each step, as if she exists in fragments, tearing reality around her with every motion. Her movements grow disjointed. There's an unnatural delay to each step, as if she exists in fragments, tearing reality around her with every motion. The melody rises again, echoing faintly from nowhere and everywhere. Her whisper, an unintelligible, chilling murmur, slips into his ears, even though her lips remain still. Panic erupts within him, and his slow pace breaks into a full run. His breath is ragged as he tears down the empty streets, searching desperately for someone, anyone who might help him. but there is no one. The world itself seems confined, the streets twisting unnaturally to keep him in. Every shadow feels alive, every corner as though it hides a pair of watchful, hungry eyes. He dares one final glance behind him. She is no longer walking. She is gliding toward him, her feet silent, her movements terrifyingly fluid. Her face is still hidden by the shadows, her form illuminated only by the haunting glow of her vibrant red dress. As he stumbles and turns down a narrow alley, she disappears for a fleeting moment. Relief begins to creep into his chest, but it doesn't last. Whispered breaths slide across the back of his neck. And then there she is, ahead of him now, her lifeless silhouette blocking his escape. He stops dead in his tracks, trapped between the narrowing alley walls. His breath comes in shallow gasps as she turns to face him fully for the first time. Her face, pale and white as bone, holds no expression. Her hollow eyes pierce through him like an icy wind sweeping inside his chest. Her lips remain painted red, a perfect match to the dress that seems to shimmer against all logic. She extends her hand slowly toward him. His legs refuse to move as waves of terror freeze him, body and soul. Behind her, shadows ripple in unnatural patterns, each dark tendril reaching toward him. Her voice, otherworldly and chilling, emerges, not spoken, but heard deep inside his skull. "You shouldn't have stared." The camera closes in on her face. The pale hollowness of her expressionless visage pulls the entire world into its void. Noise erupts in a distortion of reality. His screams, shattering glass, and the thunderous pounding of his heartbeat all lost amidst a chaos that consumes everything. And then, silence. The screen goes black. The silence stretches, deafening in its finality. Slowly, the sound of faint wind emerges, and the screen fades into an empty street. There is no sign of the young man, no trace of the haunting encounter. The camera pans slowly to the horizon where the night deepens, shadows swallowing the light. But just before the screen fades again to black, the camera pans slowly to the horizon where the night deepens, shadows swallowing the light. But just before the screen fades again to black, there she is, barely visible, standing at the far end of the street. The red dress almost glows against the abyss, and though she stands completely still, her haunting presence drips with an unspeakable terror. Her final whisper, too faint to decipher, echoes one last time as the screen flickers. A soft narration begins. In the restless quiet of night, some say she waits. A figure in red, born of beauty and despair, caught between two worlds. As he grapples with his growing dread amidst a chilling chase that reveals the boundaries of reality and terror. Dark imagery overlays the screen, AI-crafted visions of forgotten streets, shadowed alleys, and figures that linger at the edge of sight. The distorted melody returns faintly, promising nightmares yet to come. Not everything haunting belongs in the shadows. Some terrors demand to be seen, just like the woman in the red dress. The video ends with her silhouette glowing faintly before fading entirely. The audience is left in silence, the dread sinking deep into their minds.